Hello and welcome. You're watching Ask PQ on Bloomberg Quint. I am Agam Vakil. Hi, Alex.
Hey, Agam. Well, I'm Alex Matthew. If you've got questions on equity, this is the perfect show for you. You can send those queries in to us on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and WhatsApp. You can also call us on 022-454-04141, or you can mail us on askpq@bloombergquint.com. Only make sure to add the AskPQ hashtag.
All right, let's take a look at the benchmark indices right now, which are trending marginally in the red. 0.25% cut for the Nifty 50 index, and the Sensex, well, trending lower in tandem with the Nifty, down by around 0.4%. The Nifty banking index again is reeling under a little bit of pressure, down 0.5% there as well, but holding on to 26,700 at this point in time. Let's take a look at the key gainers and losers on the indices. We have Indiabulls Housing Finance leading the gains, up 3%, followed by UPL. It's resumed its strength now. It's up nearly 3%. Wipro, of course, Cipla and Infosys, along with ONGC, among other gainers, which are advancing in trade today. Taking a look at the losers, we have some weakness in HDFC Limited. M&M seeing a decline of 2% too. We've seen an increase in open interest towards shorts for M&M today in the future space, and Bharti Airtel among others, which is also losing out. Sun Pharma has turned from green to red, now declining another 1.5%, though the cuts are not as deep as what we saw yesterday. NTPC and HDFC Bank among others, which are losing out in trade. But on the whole, again, Alex, it's a quiet day of trade, relatively average turnovers, and not too much to speak for.
All right. Well, on that note, without further ado, let me introduce to you the guest who I have with me in the studio as of now. We have T.S. Harihar of HRBV Client Solutions. We will soon be joined by Aditya Agarwala. So we'll have to start with the long-term queries, which I can see quite a few of already on our social media platforms. We start from the top with Neeraj Chauhan's question on healthcare global enterprises. Based on the current fundamentals, would you recommend getting in for the long term?
Yes, I would believe, if you have a perspective, let's say about probably 2 years, I think that is the kind of time it will take for the stock to kind of give some positive returns. I would believe it's in a good space. Valuations are likely to be fairly attractive. So if you have a 1.5 to 2 year perspective, I would believe, yes, it's probably the right time to get into the stock.
Between this and Fortis?
We have never preferred Fortis because of the historical baggage that they've had on the corporate governance front. So it's always been stocks other than Fortis in the healthcare space that we've looked at.
Mr. Harihar, do you track PSP projects? We wanted a view there. Okay, so we move on. Okay, another question from Ibn Maqsood. He says, is there any possibility of Nifty going below 10,500 in the near term?
Could be, because see, what we're estimating is the way the global scenario has panned out, with the trade war now kind of at least temporarily off the table. Oil lower to about $62 a barrel. I think the rupee dollar coming back to about 70. I think the downsides to me from here don't look to be too concerning. So hard to say about 10.5, but we do believe that it should probably be about 10.5 on the downside and 11.3 on the upside. So that is the kind of a range that we would be in the Nifty.
Okay. So there has been an update with regard to Yes Bank and the board. T.S. Vijayan, who was formerly the chairman of IRDA, has been appointed to the board as an independent director for a period of 5 years. That update came in last evening. We've got a question on Facebook about whether it is a good idea. This is, by the way, from Avinash Chitnis. No, sorry, that's on Yes Bank. On Axis, I'll get to that in a bit. This is from Chintan Shah. He's asking if you would accumulate Yes Bank at current levels, or would you wait till the end of January, perhaps, for more clarity?
I would believe, yes. I would really be keen on seeing who is the next CEO and, broadly, what does the CEO plan to do? Because what has happened in the last probably 6 months is that Yes Bank has acquired a baggage of opaqueness. It has acquired a baggage of weak corporate governance standards, and it has also acquired a baggage of a lot of, I would say, bad assets hidden under the garb of good assets. So, I would still prefer that, let's say, a new person takes over, makes a clean breast of what is the actual situation, and then I think we should take a call on the stock. Probably at this point of time, if I was to take a banking call, it would either be a Kotak Bank or even an RBL Bank, but I don't think we'd be too keen on a Yes Bank at this point.
Sorry, while we're at it, why don't we take the same query? I think I mentioned this earlier, but we've got another query on Facebook from Avinash Chitnis on Axis. So why don't you just complete the picture on Axis and ICICI? Would you recommend getting in?
No, we would be a little cautious on both. See, let's understand that both Axis and ICICI have an advantage that they're a fairly large weighted stock. So because of that, there is always a certain ETF demand for these stocks at lower prices. So normally whenever these stocks go down, you will find ETF buying coming in, rebalancing happening and the stocks coming down.
Right.
But that is not to say much about the inherent strengths of these stocks. Again, same case like Yes Bank, we would prefer to see the new CEO taking over. Although we know the new CEO in case of Axis Bank, we would prefer the new CEO taking over, lay out his plans for the next 2-3 years. I think that is when we would look at. But generally, we have been skeptical on both these banks from an investment perspective.
Okay, well, that's your scenario on the private banking space, and it's been laid out by Mr. Harihar. But we move on, take a view at the agri space, specifically with respect to Bayer and Monsanto. Of course, we're looking at a merger at a global level. But Mr. Harihar, have you been tracking this space?
I think they have seen a lot of traction on the chemicals, agrochemical space. Not so much traction as far as the hybrid seed space is concerned, because I think that is where probably somebody like Monsanto has a big advantage. But we have always believed that a merger between Bayer and Monsanto would actually create a kind of a huge economies of scale on the agri side. To what extent Indian farmers are able to afford it, I think that is something we'll have to really work out. But I would believe that definitely a merger gives a lot of synergies. So we would be actually looking at both the stocks positively.
Okay, so that actually is Mayank Saraf's question, and he's been posting that question for a few days now. Mayank, I hope that you answered that query of yours.
Fantastic. Yeah. All right, let's pull up Maharashtra Seamless and see where it's currently trading. We've got a question from Joby Elias. He's asking for a long-term view on the stock. Let's also pull up the long-term chart, perhaps the year-to-date chart, to see how the stock has performed in the year-to-date period as well. So far this year, in fact, better off than some of the other players or rather other stocks that you would have seen losing about 30% in that time.
Yeah. Also, it's in a slightly different kind of category. So that could probably be the reason why. But so our only concern with this stock has been traditionally it has not been a great performer. If you look at probably the last 8 or 10 years, the returns on the stock have not been too great. So from that perspective, I think looking for price traction could be a little difficult. But yes, fundamentally, we don't see anything wrong with the stock. So probably, yes, one can look at this considering that it has been stable even in tough times. You can look at the stock. But we have never been, I would say, a great bull on the stock at any point of time.
All right. Okay, so let's address Puneet Nanda's query on Radico Khaitan. And as we know that, alcohol as an industry has been a focus, but that's largely on account of the margin tailwinds and headwinds, at the ebb and flow with respect to ethanol. But Mr. Harihar, Radico Khaitan is one of the relative outperformers in this industry. What's your view here? What would you advise Puneet?
We in fact, even in the old days, we always preferred Radico Khaitan over UB because we always believed that not only are the margins better as far as Radico Khaitan is concerned, even I think operational factors, including working capital management, they are a lot better compared to the other companies in the industry. So yes, Radico Khaitan, I think even at these prices, we probably like. It never had the kind of a high profile that a UB had, but definitely yes, I think among the liquor stocks is one of those very solid stocks. So we would definitely suggest to hold on to the stock.
Right. What's your view on Shankara Building? It's hit a 52-week low today. We've got a question coming in from Anthony Joy. He's asking for a fundamental view. I think he bought at 580. Stock is currently at 566.
I wouldn't, see too much of a worry in that, because let's not forget that the stock actually rallied about 3x after listing. So from that perspective, from that point, I think a correction of 50%, I wouldn't really read too much into that. But yes, I think what happened was that people almost started treating it like a brand, and they started giving it FMCG valuation when it was ultimately a material manufacturer.
Right.
So I think that froth had to go out. I think that is more or less out. And the price at which he has bought, I think, seems to be very close to the price at which the stock is quoting. So I wouldn't see much of a risk. I think it's a good stock, profitable company, and I would say you should hold on to the stock.
Okay. Mr. Harihar, we also keep getting questions on your consumer durables companies. In this case, we have Crompton Greaves. We have a question from Deepak Batra, pardon me. And his question is a long-term fundamental view. How do you view Crompton Greaves and perhaps in comparison to the rest of the industry players?
We don't actually like the stock a lot. We really feel that if you are looking at consumer durables, Havells is probably the best stock in that space. Largely because I think after the acquisition of Lloyd, they've also taken a big share into the white goods segment too. And in terms of profitability, in terms of I would say the efficiency of operation, definitely I think this Havells is way ahead. So if you're looking at a choice, I would definitely put Havells much above Crompton.
Okay.
All right. Well, we're joined now by Aditya Agarwala of Yes Securities, clearly proving that traffic in Mumbai is almost as unpredictable as the market sometimes.
I agree to that completely.
But, let's take some short-term queries. A lot of you have already written in, and if I can find some, I will go straight to you while you pull up the charts. Let's start, in fact, with a technical view. The latest one, Ramesh is asking for a technical view on Dabur for the next month or so. Let's pull up the chart and see where Dabur is currently trading. 411, down about 0.3% today.
The stock did see a good run-up from 370, 365 levels to 420 all the way. Now the stock has entered into a consolidation. Volumes are thin. So on the downside, 405 is acting as a good support. On the upside, 420, 425 is acting as a resistance. So I would take a fresh long if the stock closes above 420. That will start the next up move for the stock, and then the targets will be 450. So a fresh long is advised only above 420. That will trigger a breakout from the consolidation flag pattern. Targets then out here would be 450.
Okay, while you're at it, why don't you give us a view on Radico Khaitan, because we want a technical view here as well. Let's pull up Radico Khaitan, see where it's trading at. It's currently at around 309 and, 397. Aditya, your view?
So stock is forming a negative head and shoulders pattern, bearish head and shoulders pattern. The neckline stands at 390 levels. If the stock starts to trade below that, probably we can see further downside in the stock. Stock can slide all the way down to 360, 350 as well. So I'll keep a close watch on 390 levels. Will not take a trade at current levels. Because there is some weakness that is seen in the stock. If it breaks 390, then definitely there is a short trade in the counter. Stock can slide all the way down to 350 as well.
Aditya, I'm tossing one more to you, and then we'll take a longer term view. Growth Finance is a stock that I'm talking about. From what I can see, on the 23rd of just a couple of months back, from what I can see, it had touched a low of 248, just under 250. Stock is currently at 303. We've got a question from Shivani Dhanuka. She's bought 2,000 shares of Growth Finance at around the current level, which is 300, and she's asking how long she can hold.
So clearly, this is one of the stocks which you want to hold on the portfolio. So this is not more of a trading stock. The daily movement in the stock is not as high as you name some of the high beta names. This is not one of those high beta stocks. So my recommendation will be hold on to the stock add it to the portfolio. These are good levels to get into the stock, no doubt about that. Probably you can see the upward levels of 400 and higher if you hold on to the stock for about a year or so.
Okay.
So this is not a trading stock because look at the trend of the stock. It tends to go into the minor consolidation for about 6 months, and then the up move starts, which takes the stock to altogether new territory.
Of course, the last correction that we saw had to do with the entire NBFC space.
Correct. Right.
Okay, well, we move on. Take the next one from Sudarshan MR. His question is actually to do with Dabur as well as Godrej Consumer. And perhaps he wants a comparison. His long-term view, he wants a long-term view of 3 years. So, Mr. Harihar, how would you compare both these, and where would your preference be between these two?
Between Godrej and
Dabur.
I think any day it will be Godrej. Because Dabur, it still had problems kind of scaling up its business the way a Godrej has. And also, I think Godrej has a leadership position in a lot of segments, including be it, detergents, be it toiletry products. They have a very strong leadership position. So, given a choice between Dabur and Godrej Consumer, and that too from a sincere 3-year perspective, we would still believe that Godrej Consumer would win hands down for us.
Okay.
Okay, let's take a short-term view on graphite. Graphite is currently trading on 921. We've got Ramanuj Zawar, who's bought 50 shares at 935. Not too far off, but what's the strategy here?
So I don't see too much of an upside in the stock. Probably there'll be more consolidation. There can be a correction as well. On the contrary, stock can slide down to levels of 860, 875. That is a good support zone for the stock. Happens to be the 200 DMA. So I believe there can be some consolidation or weakness. I don't see an immediate upside. So if we can stick on to the stock to levels of 850 and look to average around those levels, then I would recommend hold on. Otherwise, keep a stop at today's low of 918 and then exit below that.
I just want to, extend this to you and talk about the fundamentals of that space. Would you recommend going long with HEG or graphite or any one of these makes?
We like both of them, and we do believe that considering the kind of acquisitions that these NCLT steel companies are making, and considering the kind of expansion and capacity we're going to see over the next probably 6 to 7 years, I would believe that these graphite companies which make inputs for those electric arc furnaces, I would believe they're going to be tremendously in demand. These stocks have appreciated substantially, but I think even at these prices, I don't think they're done with. There is still a lot of upside in this stock.
Sure. Okay, we also need a technical view on Lumax Auto. We have Hariom Dhoot, who's bought Lumax Auto at 212. It's currently at 203, so he's possibly sitting on a little bit of a loss here. Aditya, how would you help him out?
I'll just take out the stock.
All right, so we can pull up the chart again and perhaps see how it's done over the previous 7 days or perhaps the previous 1 month. Of course, on an intraday basis, it is showing some weakness today, and that's your 3-month time horizon. That's been absolutely flat out there. And 1 month, it's gained 16%. So, Aditya?
So, there is definitely a strong uptrend in the stock, no doubt about that.
Yeah.
Though this gentleman is sitting at minor loss or probably somewhere thereabouts, I would recommend him hold on to the stock. There is some weakness in the stock today because stock did see a good run up in the last 2 trading sessions. From 186, stock has moved to 210. So, minor profit booking in trade today, nothing to worry about.
Right.
I would strongly advise him to hold on to the stock. There are new highs in the stock, which I see probably very soon. Stock can hit levels of 235 to 240 as well. So a definite thumbs up.
All right.
Okay. Hari, coming on Prabhat Dairy, Sharad Gowda is asking for a long-term view. And while you're at it, also talk about perhaps Parag and say, in the space, would you prefer any one of the two?
Parag definitely, I think, looks to be a better bet. There have been some acquisition talks about, I think, Prabhat Dairy over the last few weeks. But I think Parag milk products, if we look at it, could probably directly benefit from a shift in dairy price. And we have seen dairy prices being strong in the last few months. So that is one stock that would really benefit from a strength in dairy prices. See, we are a little cautious in the sector as a whole, but if you were to make a choice, we would probably put Parag over Prabhat.
All right, that's as far as your milk industry goes. Moving on, we have Karan Singh, who wants a long-term view on Kaveri Seed Company. Let's pull up that particular chart. It's currently at around 532, and I want to remind our audiences that Kaveri Seed Company, of course, gets 75% to 80% of its revenues only in the first quarter. So you shouldn't really go by the earnings for the second, third, and fourth quarter that much. Fourth quarter possibly could see a little bit of an uptick. That's your performance for Kaveri Seed Company. So it's flat over the period of 1 year. 6 months and 9 months has seen a little bit of appreciation, though it has come off quite substantially in the last 3 months. Mr. Harihar, do you have a view here for Kaveri Seed Company?
See, we were actually positive when the MSP was announced last year. We were positive because the whole logic was that, if the farmer is able to charge 150% of his cost of production, they would have an incentive to spend on things like hybrid seeds. But apparently, I don't think most of the farmers appear to be getting that price. So I think that is one of the reasons the hybrid seeds companies really haven't done too well, because the kind of demand they were expecting to come, I don't think that has really come about. So that is definitely negative. I think we have to probably wait for some time. I wouldn't really jump into the stock at this point of time. It's in a great space, but I think we'll have to really wait and see how much of the demand really comes up from the higher MSP.
Okay.
We did take a fundamental view on Shankara. It's down significantly in trade today, as I mentioned, about 52-week low. We're also getting 10% lower. Also getting questions on a technical, view, if you can provide them with one.
So as far as charts go, a stock which is continuously hitting lower circuits warrant charters from recommending a buy on the stock. So I would do the same. I don't see any upside in the stock. Volumes are extremely high on the down circuit. So that tells me that stay away from the stock, wait for the trend to reverse, then only look at getting into the stock. I'm okay buying about 10% higher, but till the time trend reverses, I'm not going to buy it.
All right. Okay, we have a fundamental question here. Manam Warangal wants to know, why are some shares trading at 10 paise and 20 paise? Are they fraudulent companies? Okay, so I'm going to just give it to the experts to answer your view here for companies which trade at 10 and 20 paise, even 50 paise for that matter.
No, I think the only reason they're trading at 50 paise is they can't trade at zero.
Right.
Technically, a share cannot trade at zero. So that is probably the only reason a stock is trading at. But I generally believe that any stock that trades less than 4 or 5 rupees is actually equivalent to zero. It's more a technical valuation that the market gives, but otherwise I don't think it really means it.
Right.
In the Indian context, they're probably called Paisa stocks. Not penny stocks, but Paisa stocks. Anyway, Sumit Agarwal is asking about VA-Tech Wabag. We've got several questions about this for a long time now. It hasn't really repaid any sort of positive outlook that people had about it. But for the long term, a lot of people talk about the potential, right? It's a unique play.
Yeah, unique play. I think the market is huge. The potential is huge. I think unfortunately, probably the market has not panned out the way VA-Tech Wabag has wanted. See, we still believe that the stock has potential, but then there are a lot of such stocks which have a potential but are not able to perform because the market is not large enough. I think we spoke about Kaveri Seeds. It's a great stock, great idea, huge market, but then the market is just not panning out. So I think it's just about that. Probably, I think once the tipping point is in place, we should see VA-Tech getting back into action.
Okay, we want a technical view on Sun Pharma because it's a short-term view here. Of course, it's the one which a lot of people have been wanting answers towards. This question comes from Gaurav Sharma, and of course, it's starting to trade in the red again after opening in the green earlier in the day, as I've suggested, but it's at around 450. Aditya, what would you recommend Gaurav to do with Sun Pharma right now?
There is a weakness in Sun Pharma, no doubt about that. But having said that, stock has seen downside from 650 odd levels to 450 that is right now. And if I'm looking at the charts on the slightly longer term time frame charts, I see good support around 430 zone. So the risk to reward is not in favor of going short at current levels because I see downside of 20 rupees, and if the stock manages to hold on to 430, probably stock can bounce back to 550 odd levels when the news is kept aside and stock starts to trade on its own. So probably I would not go short at current levels. I would wait for some time to get into the stock, see how it reacts around 430, 440 odd levels. If it manages to hold on to 430, I'll go long rather than going short for targets of 550.
All right, Mr. Harihar, I don't know how privy you are to the latest development at Sun Pharma, but what would you do with this one?
See, we have been selling the stock for quite some time, and we still believe the stock is going to go way below 400. So normally, what we have seen is that the overall market margins have shrunk. If you look at the operating margins of Sun Pharma 4 years back and today, there's a substantial shrinkage as far as margins is concerned. But that is a fundamental side of the story which you can handle. We are always skeptical when a company gets into financial services, because I don't know why a pharma company needs to get into financial services. So that was something we were always skeptical about. And then you can have this a series of entities being floated in Cayman Islands and Isle of Man, and then the whole problem starts. So we are very skeptical about the group till the time there is a complete clarity that Sun is willing to let go all these financial services, we would not be buying Sun Pharma at this point of time.
All right, Agam, we've reached that time of the show where we slip into the rapid fire segment. This, as you know, is where we try and scrunch as many questions as possible in a period of 2 minutes. Reminder to both the experts to keep their answers as short as possible, but also as cogent as possible. Let's start with Shivakumar's question. You've mentioned RBL Bank, if I remember correctly, and Kotak Mahindra Bank in the banking space that you like. What is your view on City Union Bank? Is it a buy at current level?
No, we would stay out of City Union Bank at this point of time.
Okay, and Neeraj Yadav wants a view on Bajaj Finance. Can we take a look at where the stock price is and take a technical view on this one at around 2,500? Aditya?
I would wait before buying Bajaj Finance. Probably a correction to 2350 will be a good level to get into Bajaj Finance.
Okay, Harihar, Apollo Tyres, Petronet LNG and Cochin Shipyard. We've got Vivek Kanodia who's asking whether he should add on to any of these for the next 5 years.
Cochin Shipyards, yes. I think Apollo we would be a little cautious, considering the kind of pressures that are coming on the input side. But I think Cochin Shipyard, yes, we'll be looking at adding at this point of time.
All right, we have a question on Ujjivan, where Manam has bought at 228 for an intraday. So he's clearly making a little bit of a profit. Aditya, would you recommend he book out with
Book out partial profit at current levels and wait for targets of 240.
All right.
Okay, Rishabh Jain, Tejas Networks. Would you buy at current levels?
Definitely. Absolutely. I think stock is corrected sharply. Quality stock, high margins, 300 crores cash. Yes, buy.
All right, we have a bunch of questions on MNC stocks that could give a 50% return over the next 2 years. That's a tough one. But any MNC stocks that you could recommend right now?
Nestle. I would bet on Nestle for a 50% return. Right. I don't know if it's 1 year, but definitely a 50% return from
All right, okay.
Okay, well, let's take HCL Technologies on the charts. Do you recommend adding at current levels? Accumulating at current levels is the question.
Yes, one can go ahead and accumulate HCL Technologies. It has underperformed Infosys and Wipro of late. Go ahead and buy HCL Technologies at current levels.
Okay, we have Rahul Sinha. He says he has 30 shares of Maruti Suzuki at 7,500. He wants to exit. What should be a good price to do that at?
The short term, hard to say, but I think if he has the holding power for a year, I would believe 9,000 plus should be a good level to
All right, fair enough.
Sudarshan, we did talk about Dabur and Godrej Consumer. I was going to apologize, but then I realized we've taken your query. Anyway, on that note, let me thank both our guests, Aditya and Harihar, for helping all our viewers with their questions. Thank you so much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Agam, thank you for a good show.
Of course, that's to you too. But don't forget, we're just a tweet, a post, or a call away. So keep your queries coming in, and we'll have as many as possible addressed with our experts. Don't go anywhere though. Up next is Power Lunch. Stay tuned to Bloomberg Quint.